Baseball Tools.
Oh, good morning. SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Live Oaks Golf Club. Man, great weather. Oh, shout out to Sergio Garcia winning the Sanderson Farms Championship.
The Chicken Championship?
Powered by Adidas in the three-stripe life. He had a super sharp Adidas shirt on yesterday, but comes from behind and wins at the Country Club of Jackson. The Sanderson Farms champion winner is a major winner and won the Masters in 2017.
Got to be the first Masters champion to ever win the Sanderson Farms championship.
You would think so. And Sergio's only 40. He looks 30. But, hey, shout out, before we get Steve Robertson on, to Sergio Garcia and the Sanderson Farms Championship. I know they wanted spectators there. This year didn't happen. They'll be there next year. Can you believe the purse is like $6.6 million? That's awesome for Jackson, Mississippi, and the state of Mississippi, and the Golf Channel coverage that we got. You know, every time they say the name, that's super cool. But Sergio Garcia with the dub, dude. Man, and it was Steve Gent, that whole crew, they do a really good job. Obviously, Sanderson Farms, the investment there. I mean, the weather was perfect. But anyway, that'd have been great to go on Thursday, Friday afternoon, Sunday yesterday, have a beverage or two. I know VIPs were there, but to have a nice group there, if you will. But hey, congratulations to Sergio Garcia, and my man is an Adidas guy. So how about that? Out of bounds, ESPN, WRKS, 105.9 The Zone. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Live Oaks Golf Club, Highway 49 North. Live Oaks Golf Club. They now have the Reed House in the back that they dropped in between the beautiful 200- and 300-year Live Oaks. And it's a corporate venue it's not just a corporate venue. It's weddings, receptions, corporate venue. We're doing an event there in a month or so. Looking forward to that.
Which we'll talk more about at the 9 o'clock hour. You're going to want to stay around for that announcement. So there you go.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. It's a beautiful place, 16,000 square feet, the Reed House in the back of Live Oaks Golf Club. Also brought to you by Edwin White's Golf Shop. Sergio Garcia's win at the Sanderson Farms Championship is brought to you by Edwin White's Golf Shop on County Line Road. For all your golf stuff, clubs, golf balls, you name it, go to Edwin White's Golf Shop on County Line Road before you go to Live Oaks Golf Club. All right, the Dogs take a loss, and they are upset by the Arkansas Razorbacks. And 21-14, Sam Pittman and the group come in and really, Barry Odom, make KJ Costello and Mike Leach uncomfortable. So we thought we'd bring Steve Robertson on, Hail State Insider, 247 Sports. And Steve joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. Steve, first of all, just kind of give me your takeaway from the game. Let's start there.
Well, the first thing I'll say is the positive is I thought the defense played really well, especially in the second half. I think Robbie Falk dug up a stat that after that opening drive in the second half, that State surrendered -4 yards on 22 plays. So the defense, kept you in the game. And, of course, that's not a really prolific Arkansas offense, especially when they lose Rakeem Boyd. But, that's an encouragement. But the rest of it is very discouraging. And listen, I think it's important to take it in the proper context. I mean, State expected to be 1-1 after 2 weeks. But this feels a lot differently. Did a week ago, last Monday, everybody thought, at this point, just about anything is possible. And then some growing pains kind of reared their ugly head, and KJ Costello has another turnover-filled game. And listen, that's a perception about himself he's going to have to beat back. I mean, in 2 games, he has made some plays to the detriment of his team, and so that's something he's going to have to prove that he can correct, that he can play clean, because a couple of those interceptions were just awful. I mean, absolutely awful. And I really thought, the one in the fourth quarter, when State was driving and kind of methodically moving it down the field, it felt like that Leach maybe had found something in the play calling just to kind of find a way to keep that Arkansas defense on its heels. And then your quarterback takes an unnecessary risk and throws a pick there. And essentially that was the game. I mean, you just kind of felt all the air in the stadium go out after that play.
I know he's new, and none of us really know that much about him. And I don't want to beat up on him, but that position is just so important. I mean, what's your read, or is it too early to know if Costello can get the magic back and get rolling again?
Well, I think he will, but I think it's one of those things, too. He's got to learn to play within himself. I think sometimes you see him maybe pressing a little bit too much, especially when they got down. And there are a lot of guys out there, listen, it's easy to play with confidence when you're leading, but when you've had a difficult game, as he had, of course, you open the game with a pick six. It gives the opponent a touchdown again for the second straight week. I think that messed with him a little bit. We're about to find out how tough he is. And that's the thing, too. I think a lot of Bulldog fans are looking at today, and they think about those couple of runs towards the sticks. You're used to seeing Nick Fitzgerald and Dak Prescott and Garrett Schrader dive for the stick. And I don't know that Mississippi State fans are going to ever embrace the sliding quarterback deal. I think they expect you to go out there and fight for it. And I think this is kind of a turning point for KJ. I think those are plays that needed to be made, and he'll have to find a way to make them.
What'd you make of what Barry Odom did throughout the day as far as dropping 8, a combo of linebackers and secondary players, and only rushing 3 most of the time, Steve?
I thought they did a good job, but I don't think it was unexpected. And I think what Mike Leach had to say in the postgame was probably pretty apropos, is that there's only so many ways you can play defense in college football. And it was really about Mississippi State's inability to execute. And there were so many times, too, where, State would find some plays underneath and kind of run for the catch. And I think that's where you really missed Kylan Hill the most. And not to say that Dylan Johnson, Jaquavius Marks didn't play hard, they did. But when you've got a guy of Kylan Hill's, ability in 4 years in a college weight room, he's going to run through some of those arm tackles and fall forward and kind of get you in third and short. And there were some times those guys, they weren't able to do that. But, as I asked KJ in the postgame, you're going to see this the rest of the year. So what do you need to do to be successful against this defense? And I think that's a reasonable question. I think every Mississippi State fan out there says, well, if this is all it takes to slow down the air raid, we're going to see this week in and week out. And I would say outside of Alabama, there probably isn't another team in the league that's going to play man-to-man coverage against Mississippi State. So that's the chore now. When you go and look at a Kentucky team that kind of shaky themselves on defense, they're going to play as conservatively as they can in hopes that KJ Costello will throw them the football.
Right.
So that's what's got to happen now is Mike Leach, and they've got to find a better way to attack this and give KJ some confidence so he can sustain some of these drives without feeling the need to take a risk.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com on the Out of Bounds show. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. When do you expect to know something on Kylan Hill?
Well, he's got to go through concussion protocol, and everybody's always really tight-lipped about that sort of thing. I was told on Sunday morning that he had a lot of issues after that blow to the back of the head. And listen, there's nothing malicious about that. I mean, you hate to see it when it's your guy. Everybody always assumes, it's a dirty play. It's just football. Kylan knows that. I don't think anybody at Mississippi State thinks there was anything deliberate. It's just one of those things that happened. Rakeem Boyd was out of the game too.
Sure.
So in many respects, it was kind of a zero sum there. That you lose your starting back, they lose theirs. Okay, let's go win the game with backup running backs, and Arkansas found a way to do it. But Kylan will have to go through concussion protocol, and I don't think we know anything different about him until probably Thursday or Friday. And I don't even know if Mike Leach puts it out there. They've become increasingly tight-lipped about all this, and I think a lot of that is a reaction to COVID. Because if you put out that a kid's not playing and he's been healthy and he didn't get injured in a ball game, people just kind of make some assumptions that perhaps that they're sick, and so they're being very careful about what they put out in the media as it relates to availability.
All right. Greg Allen, what are you hearing for our listeners? Offensive lineman that was out for the Arkansas game. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, and he actually dressed and worked. I think it was a game-time decision. They had kind of prepared LaQuinston Sharp, to be able to go. And Sharp's a guy that was a guy at East Mississippi and played a lot last year for Mississippi State. Just a little bit undersized, for this scheme. But I thought he played actually pretty well. And, again, availability on Greg. The fact that he dressed and tried to give it a go Saturday tells me there's a good chance we could see him on in Lexington. But again, a lot happens in a week's time, so we'll just see how things develop.
Defense. We were talking earlier this morning, Steve, that it's not but about a handful of times that Leach's defensive coordinator has only given up 14 points and they lose.
Yeah, and I bet if you go run the stats on that, you could probably count it on one hand. And again, that's why it's so important not to gift opponents points. And State's done that 2 weeks in a row. And, everybody's going to have some growing pains early on. And I'm not trying to gloss over the loss in any respect, because this is not a good Arkansas team. Are they improved from a year ago? Yes, they are. But they are very pedestrian on offense. And there were a couple times that State secondary just had some busts. A couple times they couldn't make the throw. Both of those touchdown catches. I mean, you had guys basically wide open, and that can't happen. That can't happen. And Zach Arnett's such an intense guy. He'll figure it out, and if that means changing some personnel and perhaps putting Emmanuel Forbes or DeCameriana Richardson out there as a true freshman a little bit more, and that's what they'll do. But I think Bulldog fans should be encouraged about the play of the defense, especially since we discussed so many times that was going to be, probably the unit that had the most growing to do. And then here you are now, kind of question the offense. And so I think maybe that bodes well for later in the year. I think it proves that Zach Arnett knows what he's doing. But yeah, that there's going to be some up and down with these younger guys, and they need to figure it out and go find a way to go get a win at Kentucky this weekend and get the season back on schedule.
Okay, what did you make of the fourth down call to the freshman running back, knowing that, again, they looked good. They look like they have promise and potential, but they're not breaking tackles, and you know that. And although, the numbers tell you maybe to call that play, it's not number 8 back there. So I think people were fine with going for it, but you gave it to a freshman running back that's not ready to break any tackles yet. Your thoughts?
Well, you gave it to Dylan Johnson early in the ball game, and he did go get you a first down. And then in that situation, I don't really question so much the decision to go for it or even to run the football, but it was such a slow developing play. And, it's basically been delayed handoff there, and Arkansas blows up that side of the field, and you go for a loss there. And so, but, in hindsight, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback that and say, well, probably should have kicked field goal there. But, you get 2 drives, one that begins at the 30 after a great punt return by Jade Wiley, and then you get one at the 20 because you create a turnover and you get 0 points. That's the ball game right there. In a one-score game, when you get 2 chances and plus territory and you get nothing from it, that's the game. And I think when you couple that in with all these turnovers and you begin to ask yourself, how did State even keep this thing close? Because the 2 fourth down conversions had failed. You add that with the turnovers, you basically given the ball back 7 times. I mean, and you're not going to beat anybody in the SEC like that. Nobody.
No. But I'll be at 21-7, Steve. I thought there were a couple of moments where Arkansas could have blown it open.
Yeah, I just don't think they were capable of doing it. That's
right.
The thing. They had the ball and momentum and just weren't capable of doing it. That's what makes it hurt so bad, I think. Again, this is not a good Arkansas team, and that's not to belittle Arkansas by any stretch. Sam Pittman is changing the culture at Arkansas, and you could tell by how hard those guys played on Saturday. They played well enough to win. They got the win. Congratulations to them on the win. But if you're on the Mississippi State side of this thing, you look at that and say, you know what? We probably expected to be 1-1, but not losing to Arkansas. And this is a team that State's dominated the last several years. And so, yeah, I hope it's a wake-up call, for Mississippi State. And that's one of the things we discussed late last week is that on Wednesday, Leach had to kind of stop practice and refocus the team because they were kind of going through the motions. And so this is where the State leadership has got to step up and say, the Kobe Joneses, the Colin Hills have got to step up and say, you know what, this isn't happening again.
Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, new book, Alpha Dogs, and genespage.com on the Miller Lite guest line. Steve will be at the Y'all Lifestyle Shop on Thursday at 2:30, signing Alpha Dogs books. And let's see, that's in the township in Ridgeland by Nukes. Blake, you got a question?
Yeah, Steve. Obviously Mike Leach isn't throwing the football, so taking the turnover decisions out, were there adjustments that could have been made, should have been made by Mike Leach in either what he told Costello to look for, how they attacked the defense, or was this a case of Mike Leach's offensive play calling was there were opportunities, KJ just purely didn't execute it? Because I think that's what fans are most upset about. I think a lot of fans feel like Mike Leach didn't try to do anything different, and I'm wondering if that's on Leach or if that's on Costello.
Well, here's the deal. I think when you go back and look at the drives that State mounted, the play calling was there. I mean, you're missing number 8. I mean, you're missing your best player, and so you have to make some adjustments with your personnel, obviously. But no, I think at the end of the day, you take away those turnovers, it's a different game. But turnovers are part of the game. I mean, that's just the reality. Injuries and turnovers are part of the game of football, and it's a war of attrition. And Arkansas won it. It's as simple as that. But no, I think the plays were there to be made. There were times that KJ missed some guys, and there were times that KJ made some bad throws. And again, I don't want to beat him up. Yeah, but he's a senior quarterback. He's the guy that's supposed to be the franchise right now. And a guy last week that was the talk of college football, and this weekend he's kind of a footnote in that same conversation. And so that's how life is in the SEC. I mean, you're the greatest one week and a bum the next, but he's got to learn from this and get better.
Oh, man. One of the best quotes, Steve, the football gods giveth and they taketh away, especially in the SEC. All right, so they'll be quiet. It'll be like CIA-type stuff on Collin Hill. I agree with you there. You made a great point about Allen. Looks like that he'll be able to go. What a week for KJ and Leach to get back on the same page and figure out what they can do. All right, let's talk about the freshman running backs. They need another year in the weight room, but there looks like a lot of potential and promise there, doesn't it?
I agree. I thought they both played with some burst and some confidence. And here's the thing, too. I mean, until you've gotten out there and played in the SEC, and that's the thing I thought about Dylan Johnson, kind of got a trial by fire. And a lot of fans missed this. But, Jaquavius Marks limped off the field, and Dylan Johnson basically had to carry all the running back reps for a couple series there until Marks kind of got going again. And then, lo and behold, early in a ball game, you're trying to get some juice, and you run a fourth down play, and you give it to a true freshman running back who played MAIS football, I guess. Well, I guess Greenville St. Joe didn't, but you understand my point is, you got a guy out there that doesn't have a lot of experience, and this is a game you got to have, and you give him the football, and he answered the call. I mean, he scores his first touchdown later, and so, yeah, I think you feel good about the future. Obviously, this team is much better with Collin Hill back there taking the lion's share of the reps at running back, but I think this gives you a little confidence to say, you know what, we've got something to build with here moving forward. And again, when it's time when the game is on the line, it'll be interesting to see how those guys play. But I thought at the same time that there's a lot to feel positive about when it comes to those guys. I mean, and again, we're picking and choosing here some things to kind of make ourselves feel better. But Mississippi State lost the game they shouldn't.
Right. No doubt. What was your initial reaction as Austin Williams didn't field the last few punts? And who's the true freshman, Wally, from the coast? And he ends up, fumbling a punt to wrap up the game, really.
Well, I think again, this is just my opinion, but I think based on how Arkansas had covered those punts, I think they saw an opportunity for a return there. And Jaden Wiley is a little more quick twitch than Austin Williams, and it's proven not quite as sure-handed. But, you leave the kid back there and he breaks that punt and gets a great return the first time, and all of it thinking, okay, we need a play. We probably need to play in the kicking game. Let's put him back out there because maybe he's a little more capable of having a big return for us. And so that's part of the deal, and then Jaden Wiley muffs that punt. And I would like to have known, what would have happened if he's able to field that and at least get down and, mount a drive there. But, it is. I mean, it's one of those things you can look at, too. There's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, you look at this thing and you can say, well, KJ this and KJ that. I mean, you had some fumbles in the game. You had the muff punt. I mean, it's a team game. It's a team loss.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, the Miller Lite guest line, and genespage.com and 247 Sports. Are you going to Lexington?
Absolutely.
They have 3 dudes that can flat out run the football. And so what do you think about that? Rodriguez, Wilson, and Rose all went for over 100 against Ole Miss. Handicap the Kentucky offense against the Mississippi State defense?
I think it's going to be a much lower scoring game than what Ole Miss and Kentucky had. And I think it's actually a better matchup for State than it would be for Ole Miss, just because of the fact, Ole Miss is kind of weak at the point of attack and run defense. And I think State should be able to kind of limit some of that. But listen, Kentucky wants to run the football. Stoops is an old school coach. stop the run, establish the run, play good sound defense, don't take chances with a quarterback. I mean,
he's Jackie Sherrill light, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and so in many ways, kind of Dan Mullen-like.
Yeah.
He's not the offensive guru, but I mean, they at the end of the day, that they share some of the same, philosophies about football. And so, yeah, I mean, not to mention, State's lost the last 2 trips up there in Lexington. I'm sure despite the fact they're 0-2, they're thinking, you know what, this is a winnable game for us at home and against a Mississippi State team that showed to be kind of, a little bit handicapped against zone coverage. So, I mean, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of zone coverage again this week. And, I think it's a real toss-up. I mean, last week, beginning of the year, I said it's a toss-up. Then Monday, I said, State's going to win that game. And you would think, an 0-2 team like Kentucky that struggles so much defensively, you'd feel a little more confident. But I think at this point, you're just kind of taking it a week at a time. And I think as the week goes on, we'll probably feel a little bit better about things. I don't think Terry Wilson can beat you unless you help him. I think he's a one-read quarterback that needs a dual-threat option to kind of be successful. I think you have to keep him in the pocket and make him be a quarterback because once he gets a running game going, it gets those other guys going. As we've seen, with Dan Mullen. I mean, when you've got the quarterback that you have to account for in the running game, it changes life as you know it. And so it's going to be an interesting week. I don't think it's going to be, 42-41. I don't think it's going to boil down to an extra point, but I think it's going to be probably similar to what we saw this past week, probably a game in the, in the high 20s or something like that. But 2 very different philosophies offensively, and it'll be very interesting to see how Mike Leach attack Stoops, because Stoops kind of gave Mullen some fits running those odd man fronts and giving you some difficult time running his own read. Did the same thing with Joe Moorhead, but Mike Leach is a different animal. So how Stoops defenses Leach will be awfully interesting.
And this is do or die for Kentucky. They don't want to start off 0-3.
Well, not to mention, I mean, you still got Tennessee and Georgia and all those guys to go. I mean, you lose this ball game here, you are almost assured of a losing season.
Interesting. Do or die for Kentucky. And then, of course, State coming off a very disappointing game and effort. All right, Steve. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
See you soon.
Steve Robertson, Alpha Dog's book is out. He'll be at the All Lifestyle Shop on Thursday at 2:30. If you follow us on social media, we'll be hammering that. That's in Ridgeland by Nukes. So he'll be signing books, book signing. We haven't had a book signing. The All Lifestyle Shop. So that's something new. We're trying to book 2 more people that are sports driven that I think would be very, very cool. But Steve will be there at 2:30 on Thursday at the All Lifestyle Shop in the township in Ridgeland. CWR has an interesting text on the Mississippi Ag John Deere tractor text line. We'll get into that on the other side. Brad Edwards with ESPN will join us at 9:30 on Lane Kiffin and his play calling over the weekend. They score 42 points against Kentucky, 7 in overtime to win 42-41. Hey, the Out of Bounds Show is also brought to you by Sergio Garcia's win at the Sanderson Farms Championship, which is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. That's Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Sergio Garcia with the dub over at the Country Club of Jackson with the Sanderson Farms Championship. That's pretty damn cool. Brad Edwards at 9:30.